25-year-old Angela Hill had been raised a conservative Mormon.
Angela came from rural Utah.
She was very close with her family growing up.
But this good girl found she had a craving for bad boys and bad behavior. And she found both in 24-year-old Logan McFarland.
Their connection was really intense. They couldn't keep their hands off of each other.
But their red-hot romance would soon be overshadowed by a horrific crime.
And there was a struggle in the vehicle. She heard a gunshot go off and something hit the back of her head.
And one murder would turn out to be only the beginning.
Police discovered another body.
2 people murdered in Utah, and they were continuing the crime spree.
Now get the inside story of how investigators untangled this deadly tale of desperation and desire. And follow along as police race against the clock to track down 2 serial killers and stop a shocking multi-state murder spree.
They were just vicious, violent, and fast.
Angela and Logan brought out the worst in each other, and they quickly spiraled out of control, walking to her car, and then all of a sudden she's approached by 2 unknown people.
The unknown female had brandished a firearm handgun to her face and told her to get in the car. And there was a struggle in the vehicle. She heard a gunshot go off and something hit the back of her head. Everyone was shocked. Something just doesn't happen every day. You know, you open up the squad room door and all of a sudden you hear someone waltz up to the door saying she'd been shot or car stolen, and just kneels down on the floor in a panic.
It was a shocking story. And as officers rushed the woman to the hospital, their minds raced with questions. Who was this woman? And who was the couple that shot her and left her for dead? The answer to those questions would reveal this was no simple carjacking. Rather, it was the latest in a string of shocking and deadly crimes. And when police ultimately uncovered who was responsible, it would be the missing puzzle piece in a gruesome killing spree that sent shockwaves across the nation.
They have a double murder. They have thefts and car thefts. I believe they would have killed anybody who got in their way.
The oldest of 3 siblings, Angela Hill was raised in a conservative Mormon household in Fairview, Utah, a rural town with a population hovering just over 1,000 residents.
Her parents say that she was a real nice person, a loving person. She loved animals.
Angela may have grown up in the middle of nowhere, but as a teenager, her natural good looks made sure she was always the center of attention.
She was gorgeous. She had blonde hair, blue eyes. She started getting a lot of attention for her looks.
But Angela grew bored with always being such a good girl. She craved excitement, and it wasn't long before she found it.
Angela started drinking, and pretty soon she was experimenting with drugs too.
By the time she was 17, Angela had started a downward spiral that horrified her conservative parents. She was introduced to heroin. She dropped out of school, and she eventually began stealing and breaking the law to support her addiction.
Her parents really wanted her to get help. It was awful for them to watch her struggle with this addiction.
It really took control of her life. It had really taken a toll on her family, and so she was ready to get clean.
Her parents believed only a miracle could wrestle Angela out of the grips of addiction. And it appeared that their prayers were about to be answered. When she was 22, Angela met a handsome young Marine.
Angela met this Marine. He was a veteran of the war in Afghanistan. He was very straight-laced and very handsome.
He was also very attracted to Angela and told her he wanted to date her, but only on one condition.
He was interested in Angela, but only if she was clean and sober.
He wasn't going to date her until she turned her life around.
Angela used the ultimatum as the motivation she needed to go to rehab. A year later, she finally kicked her addiction and officially began dating the Marine. They moved in together, and it wasn't long before the couple was engaged.
This was the happiest she had ever been. She was sober, she was in love. It was wonderful.
As happy as Angela was, the pressures of planning her wedding and thinking about a future with her fiancé started to cause anxiety. She missed the excitement of being single, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she might not be cut out for life as a stereotypical suburban housewife.
All of a sudden, there's a wedding to plan. There's a future to plan. She thought things were going to be perfect with this guy, and all of a sudden, she had cold feet.
The stress began to mount, and Angela did not know how to handle it. Right after Christmas, they start fighting all the time.
Desperate to blow off some steam, on the night of December 28th, Angela decided to meet up with some old friends at a local party. It seemed like a good idea until she got there and came face to face with temptation.
She finds that, like a lot of parties, there's no shortage of drugs and alcohol.
At this party, like many that she'd been to, involved drugs and alcohol. And at that point, Angela just kind of let loose.
Angela gave in to old temptations and gave up nearly 2 years of sobriety.
The party was great. She felt like she was a teen all over again.
This party, it really triggered something in Angela. That brought her back to her troublemaking days. And that was something that she really just couldn't shake.
Angela was turning heads at the party, and one rugged young man in particular couldn't take his eyes off her.
This guy was obviously interested in her. He wasn't being shy about it. He introduced himself as Logan McFarland. They had actually gone to middle school together over a decade ago.
But this handsome 24-year-old was a far cry from the awkward church-going kid Angela remembered.
He used to be this very straight-laced Mormon boy, and here he was now, this handsome guy giving off this irresistible bad boy vibe.
The attraction was immediate, the sexual tension was there, and neither of them could ignore it.
Like a lot of kids from rural Utah, Logan's childhood centered on the church.
He was from Fairview, Utah. He was born and raised in a devout Mormon family.
He was the perfect Mormon boy. He was active in church, he obeyed his parents, he did well in school.
But when Logan was a young boy, his seemingly perfect life hit a speed bump when his parents divorced. With his family in pieces, Logan began questioning his religion.
And it was really tough news for Logan to take. He started to grow distant from the church. He didn't want to attend services anymore. He was very disillusioned.
The aimless teenager fell in with a rough and rowdy crowd. He began to fill the void that faith once occupied with drugs and alcohol.
He changed the way he dressed, he changed the way he walked and talked. He turned into a full-fledged bad boy.
And by the time Logan was 24, his life centered around getting high and getting away with anything he could. But when he spotted his old classmate, Angela Hill, at a party in December of 2011, the beautiful vision from his past awakened something more in him. He could see that she was a natural-born hellraiser, just like him. And when they reconnected, Angela realized that she had far more in common with Logan than she ever would with her conservative fiancé.
She loved her fiance, but what she really loved was the thrill, the rush that she felt of kind of being wild again and just letting loose. And that's something that Logan offered her.
They were both troublemakers and they both loved getting high. They recognized that they were kindred spirits in that respect.
Their attraction was immediate. The sexual tension was there and it was strong.
After a couple of hours at the party, Angela and Logan were ready for some privacy.
They decided it was time to leave the party together. They borrowed his friend's car and they left the party. They couldn't wait to be alone.
Both Angela and Logan knew they were in for a night to remember. But what they didn't know was that the fallout from that night and the days that followed would completely and tragically change their lives forever. And the end results would be deadly. Coming up, the victim from the police station recounts her fight for survival.
She bit, she clawed, she scratched. There was no holds barred.
And the search for the shooters in the carjacking case leads to an even more shocking and fatal discovery.
The police can kind of see into one of these windows and they see what they think is a body.
He's now engaged to a Marine. Logan had gone from being this perfect Mormon schoolboy to notorious local troublemaker.
Although she was engaged, they both gave in to a powerful attraction they shared.
The chemistry between Logan and Angela was instant. The two of them really hit it off right away.
And just a few hours after meeting Logan, Angela forgot all about her fiancé and her sobriety.
They're getting high and getting drunk, and the higher they get, the harder it is to keep their hands off one another.
And Logan borrowed a car from a friend to whisk Angela off into the night.
They wanted to leave the party. The sexual tension between them was so intense that they just wanted to be alone.
But 3 days later, and 200 miles away, police in West Wendover, Nevada, would have their own night to remember. Just before 8 a.m. on New Year's Eve morning, a badly bleeding woman stumbled into the local police station.
At that time, when I was removing her jacket, you could see the blood trickling down her neck and dripping onto the floor of our squad room. I knew something serious had just happened.
As police came to her aid, the woman told them she'd been shot in the head. She also told police her name was Ratana Kiamanavan, and that the events leading up to her shooting began earlier that evening when she was leaving the local casino where she worked the graveyard shift. A man and a woman approached her in the employee parking lot.
The couple stopped. They asked her for help.
The couple was asking for directions, and Ratana told them she'd help them as best she could. But she got a startling surprise.
The unknown female had brandished a handgun to her face and told her to get in the car.
The armed woman ordered Ratana into the passenger seat and took her keys.
She demanded that the victim put her head down and remain quiet, and then she started the car and they started to drive away.
Ratana told police that as they drove, the man appeared to be following them in the silver sedan. As they approached the freeway, Ratana began to fear the worst.
She thinks at that moment, I'm gonna die if I don't fight back.
With nothing left to lose, Ratana made a daring move.
She lunges for this weapon.
Ratana said her attack took the female carjacker completely by surprise. The woman stopped the car, and Ratana simply didn't let up.
She fought for her life. She bit, she clawed, she scratched. There was no holds barred.
Then they both spill out of the car onto the ground and they're still wrestling.
It sounded to police like the carjackers couldn't have picked a worse victim. The two women grappled, but Ratana, an experienced bodybuilder, quickly got the upper hand.
Miss Kiamanavan popped back in the car and she started to drive away.
But she wasn't home free yet.
She heard a loud bang and she felt something hit her head.
Ratana told police that when she felt something warm running down her neck, she realized the awful truth.
She was shot in the head.
And her two attackers weren't done.
She's seen the other car driving at a high rate of speed towards her. She felt a nudge of the back of the car where he had rammed her.
Though beaten, shot, and even rear-ended, Ratana outran her pursuers and found her way to the police station. As EMT workers tended to her wounds, investigators asked Ratana for one more set of details. A description of her assailants. She told them they were young and white.
She identified the woman with tattoos, the man skinny, scrawny.
But that was all she was able to say.
She went unconscious. I think once she realized that she was in some sort of a safe environment, she was able to release herself and allow her body to just kind of slow down and fall into their care.
EMTs took over. Ratana's condition was judged too grave for the local hospital.
They life-flighted her to 𝒊𝒍𝒊𝒄.
With Ratana no longer able to help, investigators moved forward with what little information they had to go on. They issued a BOLO alert, describing the silver sedan's front-end damage and the armed and dangerous young white couple that may be driving it.
It was at a very elevated response because of the level of violence that had been exhibited.
Less than an hour later, they hit the jackpot. A call came in from police in Wells, Nevada, about 60 miles away. A motel guest called police in Wells to report their car had been stolen.
The people that owned the vehicle that was stolen had started it to let it thaw the windows and kind of warm up while they loaded their belongings in.
She said it was about 5 minutes. Inside her hotel room, she came out and her car was gone.
The woman's car didn't fit the description of the vehicle used in the attempted carjacking from earlier that day. But a car that police discovered not far from the hotel did.
There was a vehicle found abandoned near the Wells airport.
Police believe that the couple who had tried to carjack Ratana had ditched their own damaged vehicle, and they were now traveling in the stolen dark gray sedan.
As an officer, you're thinking somehow this has got to be all related.
Not long after, Nevada Highway Patrol spotted a car fitting the updated description on the highway leaving Wells.
Nevada Highway Patrol saw that vehicle, began a high-speed pursuit.
It was a very aggressive chase, and it went for several miles. The suspects were driving at a high rate of speed, and so were the troopers.
As troopers closed in, the sedan's driver swerved across the median and did a 180 in the opposite direction. Police were scrambling to stop him.
The police laid out some spike strips to slow down the escapees.
It looked like Nevada troopers had their man and woman. But just before the hurtling sedan reached the spikes, it veered off the highway.
And that's where they took the off-ramp.
The rarely used exit was in remote Elko County. Within seconds, the car vanished into the desert.
They were able to get away from them just because of that. Just because the Highway Patrol had to be a little bit more careful.
And then they disappeared.
Police across Utah and Nevada began coordinating a search for the car and the couple who'd staged the violent carjacking.
It was all hands on deck. We've got to bring this thing to a resolution and conclusion.
Investigators were racing against the clock, and they had no way of knowing that things were about to get much worse. Coming up, a potential lead uncovers a shocking new crime.
There were 2 bodies lying there on the floor.
But how is this connected?
It absolutely spiraled out of control.
When small-town bad boy Logan McFarland and recovering addict Angela Hill hooked up at a party in Fairview, Utah, the sparks flew.
Logan sees Angela, and he decides right then and there that he is gonna make her his.
That night, Angela realized how much she missed the excitement of her old life, and she saw that Logan could give it to her.
Together, the 2 lovers impulsively took off on a drug-fueled road trip that would have deadly consequences, and their new relationship would quickly shift from red-hot passion to cold-blooded murder. 3 days after Angela and Logan left town, the couple's friends and family were getting worried. Those who knew Angela couldn't accept that she'd abandoned such a promising future.
She loved her fiance, but what she really loved was the rush that she felt of kind of being wild again, and that's something that Logan offered her.
I suspect that she didn't want to go on this crime spree, but when she was in it and with the drugs, she just couldn't get out of it.
While Angela and Logan were on the run, the police in Elko County, Nevada, had taken up the search for a mysterious pair of assailants who'd shot 35-year-old Ratana Kiamanavong in Nevada.
was a carjacking that occurred in West Wendover, Nevada, where they tried to take a female, and during that episode, the female fought really good and really hard against these two folks. And as she fought, they were able to grab a gun and get a round off that struck her.
The man and woman that investigators believed were responsible for the attack escaped arrest after a high-speed chase.
They were able to get away from highway patrol and took an off-ramp.
But police weren't giving up.
They just didn't want more people to be a victim at the hands of these two people.
They were armed and dangerous.
Crime scene investigators in Wells, Nevada picked over the abandoned car they believed the couple had been driving when they attacked Ratana.
The Elko County Sheriff's Office detectives were the ones that did the search warrant on the suspect vehicle that was reported stolen out of Utah, and they found a check payable to Animal House Gym, which is owned and operated by Ratana.
Another discovery on the floor of the car provided a big break.
There was a receipt from a credit card.
We're sifting through every item in there. I came across the receipt from Del Taco, which was located at Lake Point in Utah. Kind of piqued my interest. It's a stolen vehicle. Who used that credit card? Who does it belong to?
The receipt from a Utah taco stand was time-stamped from the night before. And when they traced the card, they got a name.
The name on the credit card was Leroy Fullwood.
Was Leroy Fullwood the male half of their gun-wielding carjacking Bonnie and Clyde? There was only one way to find out.
Once they saw that name, Fullwood, they contacted authorities in Utah.
We called down there and, kind of tell them, hey, we've got this going on. We've recovered this vehicle. We found this receipt. This credit card belongs to people that live in your jurisdiction. Can we have somebody run over and check on them?
Around 6 p.m. on the evening of December 31st, Mount Pleasant, Utah police paid a visit to the home of Leroy Fullwood.
The lights were off, no one came to the door, it didn't look like anybody was home.
When police peered inside Fullwood's house, they realized they'd need to go in uninvited. Officers broke down the front door and were shocked by what they found inside.
There was a man lying on the floor. He was deceased.
The unidentified male had not died alone.
There were two bodies. Lying near the man was also the body of a woman.
Instead of suspects, investigators now had more victims.
These people were still on the loose, and the potential that they could still be armed and the potential that they could bring further harm to more people was even more compelling.
So at this point, they're thinking there has to be some relation to the people who had attacked Ratana and the people who had murdered the Fullwoods.
Detectives identified the bodies as 70-year-old retired barber Leroy Fullwood and his wife, 69-year-old retired schoolteacher Dorothy. Both lay dead from gunshot wounds.
It appeared that both Dorothy and Leroy were shot with a .22 caliber weapon.
A preliminary examination suggested that the Fullwoods had been dead for about 2 days. And from the look of their home, whoever killed them hadn't left empty-handed.
The whole home had been ransacked, the closets were empty, the contents of the home had been strewn around.
It definitely looked like a robbery.
For police in Utah and Nevada, the gruesome discovery meant one thing.
We found ourselves saying, this has got to be connected.
The same people who had shot this woman in Wendover may have been involved in the double murder.
The list of charges against the mystery couple were growing by the day.
It absolutely spiraled out of control.
But who were they?
We gathered what we could as far as the vehicle description and what the two suspects, looked like.
A few hours later, police received word from Salt Lake City that there was at least one charge the anonymous spree killers had avoided.
Ratana did recover from her injuries.
Word of the Fullwood murders traveled quickly through remote central Utah. Investigators began fielding calls from all over the region offering help. Most of the tips led them nowhere, until they got a call from a 20-year-old Fairview resident named Damian Flores.
Damian said that he thought he knew who had killed the Fullwoods.
A quick record check confirmed that Damian was no stranger to the police.
Damian wasn't a violent guy, but he had definitely been in trouble with the police before.
Detectives quickly brought him in for a statement. Damian told investigators that on the night of December 28th, he had been at a party in Fairview. At around 8 o'clock, Logan had borrowed a friend's car and left.
Logan approached a friend that night and asked to borrow their car.
Damian told police that his friend Logan McFarland hit it off with a girl whose name was Angela Hill.
Damian was under the impression that Logan was asking for his friend's car so he could take Angela somewhere more private.
When the couple returned to the party hours later, Damian said they had a story to tell.
Logan comes back to the party. He's still with Angela and he's bragging about his night.
But Logan wasn't bragging about getting lucky with Angela.
Logan came back to the party with a duffel bag full of jewelry and guns.
When Damian woke up the following day, the Plymouth was gone.
The next morning, the car is gone. Logan is nowhere to be found, so Damian thinks that Logan must have taken it again.
A few hours later, another friend spotted the Plymouth abandoned by the side of the freeway. When Damian went to get the car back, it wasn't in the same condition.
There's all this stuff inside. There's a lot of jewelry. It's stuff that Damian assumes must have been stolen by whoever took the car.
Detectives felt sure that the stolen jewelry would establish a connection between Logan and Angela, the Fullwood murders, and the assault on Ratana. Could the car provide a clue to where Logan and Angela were now? Coming up, a cross-country murder spree becomes a tense showdown.
The police started to call out through a megaphone, put your hands up.
As the manhunt comes to a perilous head.
They were going toward the ranch, and they were armed.
Just days after they first hooked up, 24-year-old Logan McFarland and 25-year-old Angela Hill had gone from passionate lovers to murder suspects after the couple was linked to an attempted carjacking and a double homicide.
They were just vicious, violent, and fast. It was awful.
A first victim was likely to recover from a gunshot wound she sustained during an attempted carjacking. But when police found a paper trail linking the assault to Leroy and Dorothy Fullwood, they found the Utah couple shot dead inside their home. It was only when a friend of Logan's contacted police that authorities were able to put a name to their suspects.
Damian Flores called police and told them that he thought Logan and Angela had stolen his friend's car and possibly killed the Fullwoods.
How did he know? When he found the abandoned car, it contained what was clearly stolen jewelry.
The stolen car was a potential gold mine of evidence.
Police were eager to analyze the car for evidence, but unfortunately, Damian had some bad news.
He told police that he had panicked and had burned all of it.
Damian had been in trouble with police plenty of times, and he wasn't about to go down for something he didn't do. He confessed to police that he had taken everything that looked incriminating and set fire to it.
He had been in trouble with the law before, and he was worried about getting in trouble again, so he burned it all.
Investigators, nevertheless, asked Damian to accompany them to where he had burned the stolen items. They hoped that something that would help them build a case against Angela and Logan had survived the fire. When they examined the ashes, detectives discovered that they were in luck.
Some of the jewelry was still intact. There was an engraved lighter, a necklace, and a pair of gold earrings.
Investigators collected the charred jewelry and brought it to the grieving Fullwood family.
Family members were able to identify that it did indeed belong to Dorothy and Leroy.
Between the jewelry, the receipt, and Ratana's description of her attackers, police had enough evidence to confirm that Logan McFarland and Angela Hill were the mystery couple behind the brutal and seemingly unending crime spree. Now all they needed was to catch them.
After getting that information, that really ramped us up to, okay, we need to find these people.
But finding two people in the wilds of rural Nevada was no easy task. The couple had eluded police during a high-speed chase on New Year's Eve and vanished into an unpopulated, nearly off-the-grid part of the state. If the couple was now stranded somewhere in the Nevada backwoods, investigators worried they might be getting desperate.
It's 2 hours from the nearest city. You're in the Nevada outback.
These people were still on the loose and were in what was presumed to be the vast wilderness of northeastern Nevada, with ranches in the vicinity.
Police worried they might be desperate enough to kill again.
They were armed and dangerous. They had guns.
They could bring further harm to more people.
Law enforcement saturated local media with photos of Angela and Logan.
We wanted the public to be aware of the car that they were driving and a little bit of their information that we had.
And on January 3rd, police got word that their campaign had paid off. A pair of local ranchers were flying in a small plane doing a routine livestock check. Late in their flight, they noticed something out of place.
We had flown up high, and we were coming down, and there they are, this young man, young woman.
When they swooped down lower to get a better look, both men recognized the couple below from news reports. It had to be 24-year-old Logan McFarland and 25-year-old Angela Hill.
According to the news report, they had killed 2 people in Utah, and then they'd shot a gal in the head in Wendover, and now here they are out there on the Pequops.
The ranchers immediately radioed the Nevada Highway Patrol. While they waited for troopers to arrive, they kept the pair in sight.
They just kind of hung out in the area and kept visualization on them.
We just circled them until law enforcement came up.
Finally, as police showed up, they surrounded Angela and Logan on the ground.
Then the vehicles come up, the doors all open. You see the cops behind the doors with their guns out.
The police started to call out through a megaphone, put your hands up.
I had my deputy start using his PA system to, let these people know, hey, we're in the area and we see you. And this is the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, giving out the public address type warning that we want them to stop.
Anxious police inched forward, guns drawn. They were prepared to use whatever force was necessary to take the armed and dangerous pair into custody.
Cops had their guns drawn, and they were ready to shoot if Logan and Angela tried anything.
But when Angela and Logan saw police, they raised their hands and shouted that they were unarmed.
They were able to cuff them, and there was no struggle.
They put up no fight.
Clinging to survival for 2 days in the Nevada wilderness had taken such a toll on Angela and Logan that they welcomed capture.
When I cuffed Miss Hill, she said, thank God, thank God, thank God. And she wanted water.
They looked beaten. They looked tired. They looked incredibly thirsty.
Investigators retraced the killer's steps. Within a few miles, they found the sedan they'd last seen speeding away, now abandoned in rough terrain.
And then they went up into the mountain as far as they could get in the car and got stuck.
And that wasn't the only thing Angela and Logan had left behind.
We eventually did find several guns that they had scattered through the junipers up there.
On the road that they were walking on, we found a couple of handguns that, they looked like they were just kind of tossed under the sagebrush.
Police now had a pair of murder weapons that matched the wounds that killed the Fullwoods and sent Ratana into the ICU. When investigators realized what lay ahead in the couple's path, they were even more relieved that Angela and Logan had been found. The home of an unsuspecting family of potential victims lay directly in Angela and Logan's path.
They were going toward the ranch, and so it was a good thing that they didn't get there.
Angela and Logan were arrested and charged in Nevada, the state where the carjacking had taken place. The double murder of the Fullwoods happened in Utah, so Utah prosecutors would have to wait their turn.
They were caught in Nevada, so Nevada gets to try first.
The day after their arrest, when the presiding Nevada judge read the case against Logan, one charge was conspicuously missing.
Logan McFarland was not charged with attempted murder.
Instead, the DA held Angela responsible for the near-deadly carjacking of Ratana Kiamanavong.
Prosecutor pinned her with the attempted murder.
Angela was stunned.
She seemed to be confused and really shocked.
Prosecutors made their decision based on Ratana's statement.
Angela Hill was identified as the person in the car, and she had a weapon in her hand.
But laying the blame on Angela didn't eliminate the possibility that she might try to point an accusing finger at Logan. Coming up, Angela tells police she was in fear for her life.
She believes that she was one of Logan McFarland's victims.
And dark details emerge about the carjacking.
We were going to handcuff her and throw her out onto the highway.
Only 5 days after beginning their instant and white-hot affair, Angela Hill and Logan McFarland were under arrest for crimes ranging from attempted murder to grand larceny.
It snowballed from incident to incident to incident.
Their spree may have been over, but their troubles had just begun. Prosecutors in Nevada charged Angela with the attempted murder and kidnapping of 35-year-old Ratana Kiamanavong.
Ms. Hill, you were arrested on allegations of possession of a stolen vehicle, conspiracy, first-degree kidnapping, robbery with a deadly weapon, and attempted murder. Ms. Hill, do you understand that?
The prosecutor had decided that she was the person who shot Miss Kiamanavong.
Logan faced charges of kidnapping, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and grand larceny. Angela was furious at being singled out for attempted murder. So furious that she did something about it.
Angela, she agreed to plead guilty to testify against McFarland. She turned on him.
Prosecutors worried that without Angela's testimony, Logan might be found not guilty.
She was a corroborating piece of evidence.
In return, Angela demanded that one charge disappear.
Angela Hill disputed shooting Miss Kiamanavong. She wanted that charge dropped.
When Logan's trial began in January 2014, no one was charged with actually shooting Ratana.
Neither one of them in court was actually charged with the attempted murder.
Prosecutors alleged that Logan's rebellious, hard-partying past made his part in the crime spree inevitable.
He was essentially a desperado who would kill you just as soon as he would ask you for the time.
In order to prove it, the DA was counting on the testimony Angela Hill had promised to provide as part of her plea deal. And when Angela took the stand, she made it clear that her loyalties no longer lie with Logan McFarland.
Everything was Logan's fault, and she was an innocent bystander.
She believes that she was one of Logan McFarland's victims.
Angela told the jury that it was Logan who came up with the carjacking plan. But his original scenario didn't involve shooting Ratana. Instead, Logan wanted her death to be far more brutal.
We were going to handcuff her and throw her out onto the highway.
Angela insisted that if she hadn't agreed to everything Logan asked, she would have been Logan's next victim.
He said if I didn't take that car that he was going to blow my head. He's going to blow both of our heads off, is what he said.
Logan's defense team countered with the claim that the kidnapping, robbing, and murder scheme was Angela's idea. Logan only went along with it to keep Angela safe.
His reaction was just to protect Angela, a response that any male would have in that situation.
On Thursday, February 6th, the jury announced their decision.
They returned with all guilty verdicts on all counts.
Logan was sentenced to 56 years in prison. Angela's plea deal had required her guilty plea. Even though she had ultimately cooperated in court, she still had to answer for the crimes she had admitted to.
Angela Hill pleaded guilty to 3 counts. The most serious one was first-degree kidnapping. She got 30 years in prison.
As both Angela and Logan are serving time for the carjacking, they are still awaiting prosecution in Utah for the murders of Leroy and Dorothy Fullwood. Logan has been charged with 2 counts of murder. This time, Angela was able to avoid the most serious charges.
Angela Hill hasn't been charged with murder, but some other minor felonies.
We still don't really know what happened that night when Angela and Logan left the party. Did they kill the Fullwoods together, or did Logan act alone? We really don't know.
Many questions still remain unanswered in the case of Logan McFarland and Angela Hill, a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde who met one night and inexplicably set off on a deadly killing spree.
Angela and Logan brought out the worst in each other, and they quickly spiraled out of control after just one night of partying. I think that goes to show how deep Angela's demons were, that everything that she had worked so hard to get back on track fell apart so quickly and so badly.
Old straight-A student with a bright future ahead of her.
She was like a younger mother, because she always kept me in the right track.
Clarence Jenkins was a 23-year-old construction worker who graduated from the School of Hard Knocks.
He wasn't book smart, but he was street smart.
Though it seemed their lives were headed in opposite directions, a chance encounter would spark a romance that couldn't be denied.
I didn't see what she saw in him. I look at it as opposite attract.
But their romance would quickly be spoiled by a gruesome discovery.
You could see what looked like a human hand.
Now, follow investigators as they piece together clues behind a horrific crime of murder and dismemberment.
I was like, are we seeing what we really are seeing?
And learn from those closest to the doomed couple what lengths they would go in the name of obsession and desire.
It's beyond belief to me that anybody could even dream up this scheme.
I never would have thought in a million years that my sister would be in a prison cell.
April 7th, 2008, Greenville, South Carolina. A local woman was returning to her apartment with her niece and nephew when she noticed something peculiar that made her stop in her tracks.
Greenville 911, it's your emergency.
I need to talk to someone. There's a bag on my door.
She noticed a black trash bag that wasn't there when she left that morning.
Okay, there's a bag on your door.
Out on the porch, but I don't know what's in it. And I got a note.
The note said, you have to give me money by such and such date or bad things were going to happen.
Greenville police immediately sent a patrol car. And when they opened the bag, they discovered something even more disturbing than the threatening note.
I could see what looked like a human hand. We moved part of that bag and we saw severed toes. And then we saw what appeared to be a human foot just sitting in the bag. And I was like, are we seeing what we really are seeing?
The first thing was to identify that victim. Then your next thought is, how many more body parts are we going to find?
Born in 1987, Carmen Major was a good girl, raised by a Christian mother in Greenville, South Carolina.
I adopted her when she was 3 days old. She's a fun-loving, caring, respectable young lady.
Carmen's mother took her faith seriously, and that meant for Carmen and her older brother, the church became like a second home.
She was an acolyte, she was an usher, she sung on the youth choir. She worked at Bottom Street United Methodist Church as well. She would give you the shirt off her back, or shoes off her feet. She believed in helping.
A natural caretaker, Carmen also helped her mother keep an eye on her older brother, who was a lot wilder than she was.
She was like a younger mother, something like that, you could say. Because she always kept me in the right track, tried to, should I say.
Carmen worked hard to fulfill everyone's expectations. After graduation, she attended Spartanburg Methodist College. Being on her own for the first time, 18-year-old Carmen also took advantage of the opportunities college life provided, making new friends outside the church.
It was exciting because Carmen loved people, and it didn't care who they were or what they were. She brought love to them.
Every time we went and saw her, she was enjoying herself. She always had good roommates and everything. So she seemed pretty pleased with it.
However, Carmen's carefree college experience would be cut short when in her sophomore year, she received some troubling news.
And her mother became sick.
I developed a staph infection in my body. I was bedridden for 6 weeks.
Carmen's family couldn't afford full-time nursing care, so she immediately decided to leave school and move back home to look after her mother.
She was taking care of me, taking to the doctor, taking me to, places that I need to go.
It was her duty, it was her obligation. She didn't hesitate to leave her studies to come home and take care of her family.
She just decided that Mommy was more important. That's why she came home.
But as devoted as Carmen was to her mother, being home again felt strange after getting a taste of what life could be like on her own.
She missed her school. I think she missed, her opportunities that were out there.
But all that changed when Carmen met 23-year-old Clarence Jenkins.
He was living in a neighboring apartment complex, and they began talking to each other.
She's stressed out, and she's lonely. And here's Clarence. He's flirtatious. He's putting attention on her. This is something she really needs.
Like Carmen, Clarence had also grown up in Greenville, South Carolina. But that's about the only thing his childhood had in common with Carmen's. Clarence's parents didn't provide much guidance at all. Ultimately, young Clarence learned most of what he knew from the other kids, committing petty thefts on the streets of Greenville.
He had some minor criminal records.
He was arrested on a bench warrant out of magistrate's court for failure to appear.
With no one to guide him, young Clarence fell through the cracks. Instead of attending college or pursuing a career, he worked whatever temp jobs he could find in construction.
He would work sporadically, trying to make a living.
But there was one area in which Clarence showed a lot more ambition. Women.
He was charming, and he knew it. And he was always able to use that charm to get the best-looking women.
And when Clarence met Carmen at their apartment complex, the first thing he noticed was her pretty face.
Carmen was a lovely young lady. She dressed well, and everybody loved her appearance.
Carmen was really cute, and that immediately caught his attention, so he didn't waste any time hitting on her.
Over the next few weeks, Clarence found excuses to keep bumping into Carmen around the apartment complex. And as he got to know her better, Clarence was struck by what a selfless caregiver she was.
This is a guy who grew up with no one to take care of him, and here's a woman who's built to take care of people. He was drawn to Carmen's goodness.
For Carmen, getting attention from a man as handsome and charming as Clarence made her feel special in a way she never experienced before. And as their flirtation continued, the sexual tension between them grew. Until one afternoon, Carmen and Clarence finally gave in to their passion.
It was most likely the first time that Carmen had had a sexual experience with any man.
After their first night together, Clarence decided to come clean and tell her about his run-ins with the law. To his surprise, Carmen was not only willing to overlook his checkered past, she wanted to help him overcome it.
Carmen was raised to see the best in people, and since this was her first real relationship, of course she wants to see the best in Clarence.
She invited him several times to come to church, and he came.
Carmen's mother, though, was suspicious of Clarence.
I didn't see what she saw in him. I guess being a mother, mothers doesn't see, but mother sees other things.
But an unexpected turn in their relationship would eventually give Clarence a chance to prove himself to Carmen's mother.
When she found out she was pregnant, he was decided he wanted Carmen to be his wife and to be the mother of his child, because he said Carmen was the best thing that ever happened for him.
Carmen said yes. And the young lovers were able to get married and move into a trailer just outside of town. Carmen was 19 and Clarence was 23. After the birth of their child, Clarence worked extra hours to pay the bills, while Carmen took a job at a sporting goods store. From the outside looking in, it looked like Carmen and Clarence Jenkins had built a happy and healthy household together. But events were about to unfold that would indicate life in their home was anything but pleasant. And hidden behind their walls was a dark secret. Coming up, investigators try to make sense of a terrifying murder, only to discover there may be more than one victim.
A similar plastic bag was left at a second location.
Year-old Carmen Major thought she'd married the man she was destined to spend the rest of her life with when she met Clarence Jenkins, a reformed bad boy who was committed to turning her life around.
It was something that she saw in him that was interesting to her, whatever it may be, and it just drew him closer and closer.
But while the couple was settling down into their dream life, police in their hometown of Greenville, South Carolina, were dealing with one of the most gruesome crimes they'd ever encountered. On April 7th, 2008, officers responded to a report of a mysterious bag on a local woman's front doorstep. Inside, they made a horrifying discovery.
Lo and behold, it looks like a human hand and a human foot.
Didn't know if it was male or female, didn't know the identity of the person because all they had was a foot and a hand.
But the body parts weren't the only thing that had been left behind.
The second piece of evidence that they were able to retrieve was a threatening letter.
The letter was addressed to a woman named Grace.
The letter said, "This is what will happen to Grace if she does not come back to the quote-unquote organization."
Grace was supposed to respond to the author of this note through an email address that they had left at the bottom of the note. The letter threatened her older son. He was going to be the next victim.
But who was Grace? The woman who found the bag outside her apartment said her name was Sue Bostic. Why then had the bag and note been left on her doorstep? And what was the organization? A cult of some kind? Or something worse?
We've got an organization that is killing people off and removing their body parts.
We're thinking, is this organized crime? You know, what is this?
Before investigators could begin answering those questions, they received more terrifying news.
We find out that there's a second location, a house, where a similar plastic bag was left.
Greenville 911, what is your emergency?
It's a black bag on the floor.
There is a black bag on the...
Yeah, it was a crime scene over here, in the apartment, and they left a black bag over there, and it was body parts.
Yes, ma'am, I know.
Oh, my God.
Investigators rushed to the home, just a few miles away, and inside the bag, they found more severed limbs.
There was a severed human hand and foot.
They were both African American. We didn't know if they were the same hands and feet or from a different person.
The bag of body parts wasn't the only thing the two cases had in common.
There is another threatening letter. The notes were very similar, if not almost identical.
The new note was also addressed to someone named Grace.
It stated that basically this is what's going to happen if you don't return to our organization.
And with two identical crime scenes, detectives were now concerned they were looking at a potential serial killer.
Was this one victim? Was it two? How many people are dead?
Investigators knew their first two tasks were to identify the victim and figure out who Grace was. And while neither of the women who found the bags went by that name, they both knew someone named Grace.
The people who found these bags are both relatives of Grace. One is an aunt, one is her mother.
The woman from the first crime, 𝒊𝒍𝒍𝒆𝒓, was Grace Davis's aunt, while the woman who reported finding the second bag, Judon Burnside, was Grace Davis's mother. With their help, investigators located Grace's son at school and took him into protective custody. But finding Grace wasn't as easy. Neither her mother or aunt had heard from Grace in over a week. According to both women, Grace had fallen off the radar after recent problems with her estranged and abusive husband, Willie Davis.
The family painted a picture of a marriage that wasn't real good.
Their relationship was extremely volatile. He was abusive in the past.
According to her family, Grace struggled to afford a place for her and the kids after leaving Willie. Grace had taken him to court over child support payments, and apparently Willie hadn't been happy about it.
Willie Davis did not like having to financially support Grace Davis.
Willie had refused to pay. And with no job or income of her own, social services had determined Grace's children would be better off in the care of a foster family.
The Department of Social Services took Grace's children away from her.
Luckily, Grace's aunt, 𝒊𝒍𝒍𝒆𝒓, offered to take temporary custody of her children. But not long after Grace dropped the children off, her aunt said she suddenly disappeared.
They have no idea where Grace is. It's not like her not to be in touch with her family. They are really, really worried.
Police began to wonder, was Willie the one threatening Grace with the letters and bags of body parts? If so, whose severed limbs had been placed inside the bags? And what was the organization he referred to?
We're looking at him as a prime suspect because typically we see in domestic abuse cases where someone becomes emotionally angry of the separation and they become violent.
But before investigators could track Willie down, they got word that the medical examiner had been able to ID the dismembered body parts. It turned out that both sets of hands and feet belonged to the same person.
When they ran the latent prints from both hands, they came back to Nicole Harris.
Nicole was a 34-year-old resident of Greenville. When police contacted her family, they were devastated by the news. They didn't know who might want to hurt her. But they admitted that Nicole had been in and out of trouble her entire life.
Nicole Harris was kind of down on her luck, had some struggles with addiction.
Was an individual that didn't really have a stable home, sort of lived in various places.
But as far as Nicole's family knew, she had no connection to anyone named Grace Davis, which left investigators with a puzzling question.
Why is her body being used as a potential threat to Grace Davis?
Hoping to find out, investigators reset their sights on Grace's husband, Willie. But when they spoke with him, Willie told police he didn't know anyone named Nicole Harris.
He had no clue who could have wrote the letters, and he didn't know what Grace was involved in.
To prove his innocence, Willie gave police a detailed account of everywhere he'd been in the last 48 hours. And witnesses who'd seen him were able to verify his claims.
He had a very strong alibi of where he was at the time.
It was clear that Willie Davis was not involved in this particular murder.
Suddenly, investigators found themselves back at square one, and all they had was a list of unanswered questions. Where was Grace Davis? Who was after her? And what had been the fate of Nicole Harris?
We knew the hands and feet belonged to Nicole Harris, but, where was the rest of her?
The only thing police knew for sure was that if Grace Davis was still alive, she was in grave danger. Meanwhile, the people of Greenville, South Carolina were in a state of panic with a murderer lurking in their midst. Local residents like Clarence and Carmen Jenkins huddled with their children behind closed doors, hoping that police would catch the killers before they could strike again. Coming up, investigators race against the clock to find Grace before it's too late. And the search unexpectedly leads to a pair of surprising suspects.
After she left her husband, she ended up moving in with this couple.
In April of 2007, detectives in Greenville, South Carolina were in the midst of investigating a gruesome crime. Police had recovered 2 threatening letters addressed to a woman named Grace Davis, along with plastic bags containing body parts belonging to a missing 34-year-old named Nicole Harris. But so far, police were unable to find any link between the 2 women.
We were not able to find any connection between Grace Davis and her family and Nicole Harris. Why is her body being used as a potential threat of something that's going to happen to Grace Davis?
With Grace Davis unaccounted for, police weren't sure how they were going to answer that question. But after a week of exhaustive searching, police finally caught the break they were looking for. A tip led officers to the home of one of Grace Davis's close friends on the outskirts of Greenville. Officers knocked and were shocked when Grace Davis met them at the door. She was unharmed and unaware of the letters and bags that had been left at her aunt and mother's homes. When Grace learned about the threats made against her, she was visibly shaken.
She was nervous, she was scared about what was going on. She didn't know who Nicole Harris was. We showed her a picture of Nicole Harris. She didn't recognize that photograph.
Once again, it seemed detectives had reached a dead end. But they couldn't help but wonder, did Grace know more than she was telling them?
There's always more. It's just getting the facts the best you can and then going back over those and kind of squeezing more information out.
Investigators wanted to know, what had Grace been doing in the months since her family lost track of her? Grace explained that life had been difficult since she decided to leave her ex-husband, until a kind-hearted couple from a local church offered to take her in.
She had been living with this couple, Clarence and Carmen Jenkins.
Grace explained that in return for room and board, she helped Carmen around the house and looked after the 2 small children while their mother was at work. Then that fall, Clarence had fallen back to his former ways when he was arrested on an outstanding warrant and sent to jail for 90 days. During his absence, Grace said she and Carmen came to rely on one another.
They definitely had a lot in common with each other and really understood each other.
But Grace confessed that as the weeks passed, their feelings for one another grew far beyond simple friendship.
During that time period, Carmen and Grace became intimate.
Carmen and Grace fell in love with each other.
While Clarence was in jail, his wife and housemate had secretly become lovers. But Grace told them that once Clarence returned home, Carmen didn't try to hide their relationship. At first, Clarence was shocked. But then Grace explained he decided there were advantages to his wife being in love with another woman.
Clarence decided that they all 3 were going to be a unit. The relationship was among all 3. There was a sexual relationship between Carmen, Grace, and Clarence.
And for a while, Grace confessed their arrangement seemed adventurous and exciting.
It was a lot of drinking, different sexual acts being conducted among the 3 of them.
But Grace missed her own children and wanted them to come live with her again. At the time, they were still living with her aunt, and social services deemed her strange living situation with Carmen and Clarence as unacceptable. They informed Grace that to get permanent custody of her children, she would have to find a place of her own. It was an easy decision. Grace left the house and her relationship with Carmen and Clarence Jenkins behind.
She ultimately ended up moving out of this relationship to try to get her custody of her kids back.
Investigators wondered, how had Carmen and Clarence felt about Grace leaving them? Was it possible they'd been angry enough to send the threatening letters? Could their marriage be the organization they referred to? Grace didn't seem to think so.
She didn't think that Clarence and Carmen were mad because she left. When she left, everything was fine.
And when investigators did a little digging on the couple, they discovered that despite Clarence's recent stint in jail, he and Carmen hardly fit the profile of dangerous killers.
They belonged to a church in the heart of downtown Greenville. They were just some married couple with kids.
But if they weren't the ones threatening Grace, who was? How had Nicole Harris become involved? And where was her body?
Finding her body would paint the picture for what happened to her, because if you find the body, you can pretty much find out how she died.
With little else to go on, detectives turned their attention to locating Nicole's remains. They put out word for anyone who'd seen her in the days before she was dismembered. The move paid off.
A lady called in and told us that she knew Nicole.
The caller told investigators that she'd seen Nicole just a couple of days before. Nicole had been hanging out at a local temp agency, and she wasn't alone. Nicole was with one of the construction workers, 24-year-old Clarence Jenkins. According to the witness, Clarence and Nicole appeared to be more than casual acquaintances.
She saw Clarence Jenkins and Nicole Harris, and that Nicole Harris was sitting in his lap and saw them walk into the bathroom together.
It appeared that they had been intimate.
For investigators, the tip finally connected the dots between the victim Nicole Harris and Grace Davis. And that connection was Clarence Jenkins. It also appeared they didn't just have one complicated love triangle on their hands, but two.
We've got Grace Davis being involved in a menage a trois with Carmen and Clarence Jenkins. We've got Clarence Jenkins with some sort of relationship with Nicole Harris.
But the fact that Carmen and Clarence had relationships with both women didn't prove they were the ones sending the letters to Grace Davis. Or that they were the ones who'd severed Nicole Harris's arms and legs. Before questioning Clarence, investigators needed more evidence. So they went back to the threatening letters and the way the organization had instructed Grace to contact them.
One of the most important pieces of evidence was an email address.
We started tracking IP addresses to see when and where that email had been accessed.
Police came up with an address where the email account was activated, the Greenville County Library. And when officers arrived to check the library's records, they finally got the break they'd been waiting for.
Greenville County Library has video, really good video. So we've got the video for those dates and times that the IP address was used for that email.
Carmen and Clarence Jenkins were checking the email address that had been provided on the note.
It links them to the body parts via the letters.
As shocking as it sounded, it appeared that Carmen and Clarence Jenkins were in fact the menacing organization who had murdered and dismembered Nicole Harris. But why?
The biggest question was why anyone would want to do this to Nicole Harris.
Coming up, police searched the Jenkins home and turned up some disturbing evidence.
As soon as I went in the hallway, I observed what I thought was blood.
And investigators finally learned what really happened to Nicole Harris.
He handcuffed her to a chair in the living room.
To the outside world, Carmen and Clarence Jenkins were a loving and devoted married couple. But a criminal investigation had revealed surprising secrets about the Jenkins relationship.
Carmen had fallen in love with a woman named Grace Davis, and Clarence decided that they would be a threesome.
They really were in a three-way relationship, all living in that trailer.
But Grace had broken things off, and police now suspected that Carmen and Clarence severed the arms and legs from another woman named Nicole Harris and sent the limbs to Grace Davis as a threat.
The letters are basically saying you have to come back.
Police arrested Carmen and Clarence Jenkins on suspicion of murder on April 10th. Investigators began by questioning Carmen first. At that point, the only tie police knew about between Carmen and Nicole Harris was Clarence, who an eyewitness had seen with Nicole at a local business. So getting Carmen to talk was key, but Carmen surprised them with her cold reaction.
No emotion. She was very just plain-faced and just stare you in the eye. She didn't react to anything. We talked about Nicole Harris. She didn't know who Nicole Harris was. She requested her attorney. So at that point, we terminated the interview.
But across the hall, detectives found Clarence much more willing to talk. He confirmed that he and Carmen had at one time had a three-way romance with Grace Davis.
He played it off like it didn't bother him that she left. She left on her own.
It didn't seem like it was that big of a deal to him.
When police asked Clarence about Nicole Harris, he admitted he knew her, though not as well as Grace. According to Clarence, Nicole was merely a girl he'd met at a temp agency.
Clarence said he had seen her a couple of times, but denied ever having any contact with her, denied ever even speaking to her.
But police had already spoken with a witness who'd seen Clarence and Nicole making out at the temp agency, just days before her dismembered body parts had been discovered. Which meant Clarence Jenkins was lying, and left police wondering what else he might be hiding. To find out, police obtained a search warrant for Clarence and Carmen's trailer. What they found inside was disturbing, to say the least.
It was nasty. There was food on the counter, dirty dishes, bugs.
But the filth wasn't enough to hide evidence of possible foul play.
As soon as I went in the hallway, I observed what I thought was suspected blood.
Police found more blood inside the shower.
You could see blood spatter. Looks like somebody had actually been murdered inside of there.
Blood samples collected from the house came back with a match to Nicole Harris, which led prosecutors to file murder charges against the couple and hold them both in custody until trial. Investigators also found documents in Clarence and Carmen's trailer that shed some light on the couple's relationship with Grace Davis.
We found copies of drafts of these marriage vows, how they would all three be together and nothing could separate them.
The vows had been written by Clarence, and based on what he wrote, his feelings for Grace were far from casual.
These weren't just made-up wedding vows. Based on what he wrote, you would think that Grace was the love of his life.
To detectives, Clarence's devotion to Grace suggested that he might have been willing to do anything to get her back, including the seduction and murder of an innocent young woman. It also made detectives question if it was possible that Carmen might not have played a major role in the crime and was just covering up for her husband. So prosecutors approached Carmen's attorneys with a deal. If Carmen pled guilty and testified against Clarence, she would receive a reduced sentence with the possibility of parole.
Do you want to spend the rest of your life in prison, or do you want an opportunity to get out?
For over a year, Carmen stood by her husband and remained silent. Then in September of 2009, it seemed Carmen's conscience finally overcame her love for Clarence.
She had remorse. She decided that she wanted to do what she could to make things as right as she possibly could. She decided to cooperate.
Through her attorney, Carmen directed authorities to a field outside of town, where she said they would find the body of Nicole Harris. When investigators searched the area, they found Nicole's charred body stuffed into the remains of a folding baby crib.
We did have a little bit of closure. We were able to get the remains to Nicole's family.
But that was only part of what prosecutors wanted from Carmen. They also needed to know why the couple killed Nicole to threaten Grace. Carmen explained that the trouble had begun when Clarence came back from his 90 days in jail and discovered she and Grace had begun sleeping together. Carmen said Clarence was stunned and she was anticipating a fight. But to her surprise, Clarence said he wasn't angry. Instead, he was excited.
There tends to be a lot of jealousy in three-way relationships, but not so here. They both loved Grace, and they both loved her deeply.
Not wanting to upset or leave her husband, Carmen decided to give the three-way relationship a try. As long as it was just physical, she didn't see it as a problem. Grace felt the same way. And for the first few months, their threesome seemed to work out better than Carmen had expected. But that changed when Carmen noticed Clarence becoming more possessive and controlling toward her and Grace.
He wanted to control their movements and where they went and what they did.
He would force them to stay inside the trailer, with lock-it so they couldn't leave.
But Clarence's demands hadn't been enough to keep Grace Davis from moving out when she got an opportunity to regain custody of her 2 children. Carmen told police that when Grace left, Clarence was furious. To him, it was more than just a breakup. It was a betrayal.
She decided to leave their little, threesome. That enraged him.
Clarence wants to show Grace this is what's going to happen to you if you don't comply.
To send his message, Clarence had told Carmen he needed a victim. And from what he knew of Nicole Harris's drug addiction and transient lifestyle, she, in Clarence's mind, was the perfect candidate.
He didn't think anybody would miss her or report her missing, an easy victim.
Carmen told detectives that she was horrified by what Clarence was planning and thought about leaving him, but was too afraid of what he might do.
For Carmen to stay with Clarence, she may had some feelings for him, but I wouldn't exactly say it was love. It was more or less like fear.
Then, on April 4th, Clarence put his plan into action. He approached Nicole at the temp agency and convinced her that he wasn't really a day laborer looking for work, but a drug enforcement officer working undercover.
Clarence Jenkins was able to convince Nicole Harris that he was actually a law enforcement officer. And he handcuffed her and said, "You're under arrest for drugs."
But instead of taking her to jail, Clarence took Nicole back to the trailer. There, she became his prisoner.
He handcuffed her to a chair in the living room.
Carmen told police she was terrified of what Clarence might do next. But then her husband made it clear that he wasn't going to do anything. She was.
Clarence told her to go in there and kill Nicole. Clarence gave her a piece of coaxial cable to tell her to strangle her to death.
Carmen said that with Clarence becoming increasingly unstable, she believed that if she refused, Clarence would turn on her. So Carmen told police that she was forced to do something she never imagined she was capable of.
Carmen went in, put the coaxial cable around her neck, tried to strangle her.
But in the end, Carmen just couldn't bring herself to go through with it.
Nicole was fighting, and Carmen couldn't do it.
Clarence wasn't going to let Carmen's failure ruin his plans, however. So he stepped in and finished the job.
Clarence put a bag over Nicole's head, wrapped the cord around her neck, and strangled her to death.
But killing Nicole was only the first step in Clarence's plan. Carmen told police he made her help him drag Nicole's body into the shower. He wanted to dismember her remains, but it ended up being more difficult than he imagined.
They tried sawing with the knife. They tried chopping with a machete. It was the pruning shears that gave them the ability to sever the hands and the feet.
Carmen said she spent the next day in a state of shock from the horror of what she'd helped her husband do. But Clarence's plan wasn't done. And after disposing of Nicole's body in a remote field, he forced Carmen to help him deliver the bags of Nicole's severed limbs to the doorsteps of Grace's relatives, along with the 2 threatening notes. Then, they waited for Grace to get the message.
Clarence makes Carmen go to the library every day to check the emails to see if they've gotten a response from Grace.
Carmen's confession gave investigators what they needed to charge Clarence Jenkins in the abduction and murder of Nicole Harris. But would her testimony alone be enough to convict her husband at trial? Coming up, state prosecutors assemble what they believe is an open and shut case against Clarence Jenkins.
It was extremely powerful evidence.
Until a courtroom bombshell threatens to turn the murder trial upside down.
Everything that Carmen Jenkins is telling you is a lie.
Carmen and Clarence Jenkins stood accused of the brutal murder and dismemberment of 34-year-old Nicole Harris. A crime that prosecutors said was part of a bizarre plot to convince the couple's former lover, Grace Davis, to rejoin their three-way romance.
Nicole Harris was the victim of a senseless crime, and this was a cold, calculated, and callous murder.
It was devastating, knowing my daughter. She would not do anything to hurt anybody.
With Carmen's confession in hand, prosecutors felt they had a solid case against Clarence. And in April of 2012, Clarence stood trial for Nicole's murder. Carmen was the prosecutor's star witness, having agreed to testify against her husband in exchange for a plea deal.
Carmen Jenkins was able to detail exactly how Nicole Harris was kidnapped, how she was murdered, how her hands and feet were severed. It was extremely powerful evidence.
Prosecutors also had DNA evidence collected from the couple's trailer.
The blood that was collected from the bathroom, from the wall, was blood of Nicole Harris.
Clarence appeared unfazed by both his wife's testimony and the evidence against him.
He didn't make any reaction when Carmen was detailing the gruesomeness of the murder.
And when the courtroom heard his defense, it soon became clear why. Defense attorneys conceded that the DNA evidence proved Nicole Harris had been killed inside the Jenkins trailer. But the evidence didn't prove who killed her. According to his defense team, Clarence Jenkins hadn't killed or dismembered Nicole Harris.
The defense said it was Carmen Jenkins who had actually murdered Nicole Harris. I didn't have anything to do with it. I helped dispose of the body. Everything that Carmen Jenkins is telling you is a lie.
According to the defense, it was Carmen who was devastated when Grace left, not Clarence. And she was the one who'd been willing to do anything to get Grace back.
Clarence was claiming that Carmen was the mastermind behind this murder.
But why would Carmen target Nicole Harris, a woman she didn't know personally, to be the victim in her gruesome extortion plot? One simple reason, according to the defense: jealousy.
Investigators believe that Clarence was having an affair with Nicole, so perhaps Carmen did too. So is it plausible that she killed Nicole to exact revenge on Clarence?
But who would the jury believe? On April 13th, 2012, the jury announced they'd reached a verdict.
Clarence Jenkins was found guilty of murder and kidnapping. The judge issued a sentence of life without parole.
As part of her plea deal, Carmen received a reduced sentence of 40 years in prison for her role in the murder.
I never would have thought in a million years that my sister, the one that wants to go to college for 4 years, had all her dreams and knew what she wanted out of life would be in a prison cell.
It will be a long wait, but for Carmen Jenkins and her family, the 40-year sentence offers the promise that one day she can perhaps return to her children.
Now, since she's in prison, she's living a better life away from him.
While Nicole's killers had been brought to justice, her terrifying case proved that every marriage has its secrets, and some are darker than anyone could ever imagine.
It's beyond belief to me that anybody's thought process could even dream up this scheme but actually carry it out.
You really never truly know what's going on behind it.
Tanya Bogdanovich seemed to be an average working mother.
She was very attentive and very caring.
But behind her wholesome facade was a secret sexual desire.
She spent the vast majority of her time online looking for sex fantasies.
And she found just what she was looking for in an adventurous college student named Michael McGregor.
He's looking for someone with more experience, someone who can show him the ropes.
Together, the couple unleashed their passions and explored their kinkiest fantasies. But their insatiable lust would lead to a dark obsession and end with an unspeakable crime.
She's covered in blood, and she's hysterical, she's crying.
Now, go behind the scenes with those who knew the lovers and learn what caused this gruesome atrocity and unravel a twisted tale of sex, bondage, and passion gone horribly awry.
A real scary picture started to unfold.
January 1st, 2013, Ontario, Canada. While locals in the sleepy town of Sarnia had been up most of the night celebrating the new year, one concerned resident was calling local police. Lynn Paquette told officers that her daughter Noelle had gone out to a party the night before. They were supposed to see each other that day, but Noelle had never shown up and wasn't answering her phone.
Noelle was really close to her parents, particularly her mom, and was speaking to her 4 or 5 times a day. And she was a big texter. So radio silence, it was unusual.
Noelle's mother told police that she'd spoken to some of her daughter's friends, who were the last ones to see her. They said Noelle had left the party after an incident with her boyfriend.
They get into a lover's spat, more than likely fueled by alcohol. Then she decides, I'm leaving.
Noelle told her friend, I'm going home and I'm gonna walk there.
It was the last time anyone had spoken to her. The question now for police was what happened to Noelle Paquette after she walked alone into the night? And where was she now? The answers to those questions would ultimately lead to the unmasking of 2 desperate killers, whose obsessions pushed them to do the unthinkable. At the southern tip of Lake Huron lies the peaceful town of Sarnia, Ontario. It was also home to young Tanya Bogdanovich. Raised by a single mother, Tanya grew up into a confident, if slightly self-possessed, teenager.
She was very fun and outgoing. She didn't want to fit into any mold that anybody had, so she was pretty much herself.
But Tanya's strong will didn't set well with everyone. Tanya's parents had divorced when she was a child, and her mother eventually remarried. And Tanya's rebellious attitude as a teenager led to constant conflict with her stepfather. Tensions in the family quickly escalated out of control, to the point where 15-year-old Tanya was sent to stay at a nearby group home with other girls who were wards of the state. At first, Tanya enjoyed life away from her stepfather's discipline. But she would quickly discover her new living situation was a nightmare by comparison.
She was living with some troubled girls, and they saw her as easy prey.
Tanya was very new to the group home, and she felt like she could not fight back. She was sexually, physically, and emotionally abused.
Tanya begged her mother to let her come home, only to be turned away.
Her mother ignored it. Nothing was done. And I think that set the groundwork for a life of a lot of mistrust.
When she turned 18, Tanya was able to move out of the group home. No longer a ward of the state, Tanya was free to take control of her own life. She met a local man and got married. By her early 20s, she was the happy mother of 2 children. But once again, Tanya's trust would be betrayed.
Tanya's husband just walked out on her and her kids.
Left to raise 2 children on her own, Tanya took whatever work she could find. And after just a few years, she managed to save enough money to start a new life and a new career in nursing school.
I met Tanya originally when I was going to college. She was very attentive and very caring, and nursing was definitely something that she wanted to do for the rest of her life.
After graduation, Tanya found work as a nurse in a senior center and started dating a new man. Soon, they'd move in together. He was kind and supportive, helping Tanya raise her children.
She just wanted to be able to move forward with her life and give her kids stability and a good life.
But as much as Tanya appreciated her live-in boyfriend, their sex life left her deeply unsatisfied.
He's a traditional guy, which makes him really attractive to Tanya as a potential husband, but their sex life, it's boring.
Tanya craved a more passionate and adventurous sex life, so she went online and found a social media site that catered to people looking to explore their kinkiest sexual desires.
By day, she was a mother. She had a committed partner, and she worked as a nurse, but she spent the vast majority of her time online looking for sex fantasies, looking to share them, looking to find a partner.
And it was online that Tanya would ultimately meet the sexually adventurous partner she was looking for. An 18-year-old college student named Michael McGregor. Like Tanya, Michael had been raised in southeastern Ontario. Growing up, he didn't have many friends, preferring to spend most of his time on his computer. And when teenage hormones began to kick in, Michael's online activity found a new focus: pornography.
He starts out with regular porn sites, but the more he watches, the more he gravitates towards the kinkier stuff.
When he left home for college at 18, Michael longed to find someone who shared his desires. But the awkward freshman lacked the confidence to meet girls, let alone one who might be willing to indulge his sexual fantasies in real life.
He has thoughts he can't share with anybody, has a big hole inside him because he feels so isolated.
So Michael turned to the one place where he felt he could be himself: the internet, creating a profile on a website that catered to alternative sex.
On his profile, he says he's looking for someone with more experience.
Michael is sort of reaching out saying, oh, I'd like to explore this fetish lifestyle, willing to try anything.
So when sexy, older Tanya Bogdanovich sent him a private message, Michael couldn't believe his luck. Tanya was exactly the kind of woman Michael had been hoping to meet, and she seemed eager to take him under her wing.
All of a sudden, you have someone saying, hey, you're an outsider, I'm an outsider too, but don't worry, I can show you the ropes.
The two flirted online for several weeks, sharing their darkest fantasies. And they discovered that they both shared one particular fantasy that was both unusual and taboo.
One of their main fetishes was this idea of rape play. And rape play is 2 consenting individuals. One is the aggressor, and one is the quote-unquote rape victim.
So one night in June, when Tanya's boyfriend and children were away, she and Michael decided to make their fantasy a reality. Michael drove to Tanya's house, where she answered the door, ready and willing to be his submissive victim.
Their first date, or physical meeting, I suppose is the best way to put it, was a rape.
It was a life-changing experience for both of them, and they connected in ways neither had ever felt before in their lives.
When they connected fast and hard, and the relationship developed very quickly.
Over the next few months, the lovers continued to meet, fulfilling new fantasies. And the more they shared, the more intense their bond became.
The intimacy that developed between Tanya and Michael was of this sex, this aggressive, extreme, violent sex.
It was the first safe space they ever experienced. They found a partner who was willing to accept them exactly the way they are.
Though with a boyfriend and kids at home, Tanya had intended to keep romance out of her sexual hobbies. But as the affair stretched on for several months, she couldn't deny that her relationship with Michael had evolved beyond just sex.
They were spending more time together, going out places, whether it was the beach or going out for lunch or whatever. And that's what sort of stemmed her to admit that it was an actual relationship.
Tanya was faced with an impossible choice between the stable, supportive family she'd always longed for and an exciting young lover who understood her in a way no one else ever could. Little did anyone then know that her decision would have deadly consequences and unleash an unspeakable evil that the town of Sarnia had never seen. Coming up, the disappearance of a local school teacher stuns a community.
This town was determined to find her.
And the search takes a dark turn when clues suggest a pair of local lovers might have something to do with the missing woman.
Yeah, this car with 2 people in it right around the same time frame as Miss Paquette's disappearance, one would have to think there's highly likely a connection.
Tanya Bogdanovich was a 30-year-old mother living a double life. By day, she was a caring nurse, but by night, she pursued a secret obsession with bondage and domination. Tanya had created a profile on a fetish website, looking for someone to fulfill her deepest fantasies. That's where she met 18-year-old college student Michael McGregor.
When this young man stepped forward and said, you know, you could probably talk me into doing anything, she jumped for it.
Although Tanya had young children and a stable boyfriend, their sex life had left her craving more. And the intense sexual bond she shared with Michael proved impossible to resist.
What started out as this fantasy BDSM sexual encounter grew into a love affair.
But while the lovers were exploring their darkest sexual urges, their peaceful town of Sarnia, Ontario, was about to be thrown into chaos. On New Year's Day, Sarnia police responded to reports of a missing person. 27-year-old Catholic schoolteacher Noelle Paquette vanished after leaving a party the night before.
Her cell phone's not working. Nobody's seen her. Nobody knows where she is.
Since it had been less than 24 hours, police were hopeful Noelle would turn up on her own. But by the next day, she was still missing, and detectives officially opened an investigation. Noelle's friends told police that she'd stormed out of the party after a drunken fight with her boyfriend. So detectives couldn't help but wonder if he had something to do with her disappearance.
Maybe the fight didn't end at the party. Maybe he followed her, and then things just got out of hand.
When officers tracked down Noelle's boyfriend, he admitted that he and Noelle had gotten into an argument at the party. But he said he knew better than to follow Noelle when she was angry. And witnesses confirmed that he didn't leave until much later. He also showed detectives a series of text messages he'd exchanged with Noelle on her way home, trying to apologize.
They text back and forth a few times, and then she stops replying.
Her cell phone started going unanswered at 2:45 a.m., and it was just radio silent.
Detectives knew she'd never made it home. So what happened to Noelle at 2:45? Searching for answers, police reviewed video recordings from traffic and security feeds along Noelle's route. And just as they'd hoped, she popped up on a series of closed-circuit cameras.
They were able to see her walking along the streets. They were able to get a very good timeline of when she left and then the last time that she was seen.
Camera footage along the street Noelle had been taking showed her headed toward a bus station around 2:45 a.m., the time when she suddenly stopped answering her phone. The cameras at the station should have picked up Noelle a few minutes later, but when police looked at the tapes, they discovered that she never got there.
She just vanished into thin air.
With no other clues to follow, police went public with the news of Noelle's disappearance. hoping someone might have seen her in the area that night. Within hours, the residents of Sarnia had mobilized to help find the school teacher.
She taught kindergarten at a Catholic school. She volunteered with children. She was beloved and not the sort of person who would get drunk and just wander away, which made people alarmed, very alarmed.
The community gets into action. They set up search parties, they start looking.
I'd say that probably everyone in Sarnia was trying their best to find her.
But 24 hours after the news went public, even the community's extensive search efforts had failed to turn up any sign of Noelle Paquette. Police were feeling pressure from both her family and townspeople to find answers. But they had no idea where to start. Until they received some unexpected help. On January 2nd, a highway patrolman was monitoring traffic outside of town when a startled motorist pulled up to tell him about a disturbing discovery he'd made just up the road.
This gentleman's driving down the road on his way to work. He stops to rush off his truck, and as he's doing so, he sees some blood drops on the side of the road.
But when the officer drove back to the location to check it out, he found more than just a few drops of blood.
He also sees footprints leading into the forested area just off to the side of the road.
He decides, well, I'm going to investigate it a bit further.
The footprints led the officer deep into the woods before the trail abruptly ended. But just as he was about to return to his patrol car, he saw something lying in the grass.
The officer discovers a young, petite, white female, fully clothed, face down.
He can't see her face, but he can see her blonde hair, and he sees a large amount of blood.
He comes away with the very easy conclusion that she's deceased.
The officer called for backup. And when investigators turned the body over to identify the victim, everyone's worst fears were confirmed.
The dead woman was Noelle Paquette.
What they realized immediately is that the young woman had been brutally assaulted.
She had a number of stab wounds that were quite evident. And the most disturbing would be the incisions to her throat.
Her throat had been cut from ear to ear.
When the townspeople found out that Noelle had been murdered, the pressure on detectives to find out what happened to her became even more intense.
There was no explanation yet, so everybody was essentially scared and traumatized by this, trying to figure out who would have done this.
Meanwhile, Tanya Bogdanovich and Michael McGregor were still in the midst of their kinky affair. But while the lovers were pushing their boundaries in the bedroom, Sarnia police detectives were trying to figure out who killed Noelle Paquette. And the savage nature of the attack told them that this had not been a random act of violence.
You don't just stab someone that many times and cut their throats unless you have some really strong emotions, and whoever did this had a lot of aggression.
Investigators couldn't help but wonder, what kind of monster would slaughter a young woman like Noelle Paquette and leave her body in the woods?
Noelle was universally loved by people in the community. She volunteered with children. Here she was, the victim of a strange and brutal crime. Who would ever want to hurt Noelle Paquette?
Coming up, police learn about a harrowing incident that occurred the same night that Noelle disappeared.
A female exits the driver's side, and she's covered in blood.
And the search for the killers leads police to focus on the twisted romance of Tanya Bogdanovich and Michael McGregor.
There was a lot of harm being done to each other, to the point where it no longer was role play, it was scary.
For months, Tanya Bogdanovich and Michael McGregor had been exploring their darkest desires.
They both were interested in pushing their boundaries, seeing how far they could go.
But their pursuit of pleasure had been overshadowed by the shocking murder of local schoolteacher 𝑲𝒊𝒍𝒆𝒓.
She'd been stabbed almost 50 times. So this was a very frenzied, violent attack.
Had Noelle simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or was it something more personal?
She was at a party, was on her way home. How is it that she ends up murdered? That became the real focus of the investigation.
The only evidence found at the scene were footprints leading to Noelle's body. At first, police assumed the footprints had been left by two people, Noelle and her killer. But upon closer inspection, investigators realized there were not just two sets of footprints, there were three.
One set is Noelle, so that means they're not only looking for one killer, they're looking for two.
With little else to go on, police knew that finding Noelle's assailants would be a daunting task. Until detectives got the break they were looking for, when two highway patrolmen told them about a bizarre encounter they had on the same road and near the same spot where Noelle's body had been found. Around 4 a.m. on New Year's Day, the two officers had been patrolling the country roads when they came across a stranded vehicle.
They see a car. It's on the side of the road, but its lights are on. So their initial reaction is somebody's in distress. Let's go see if we can help.
But before officers had even gotten out of their cruiser, they were met with a surprising sight. A female exiting the driver's side and covered in blood.
And she's hysterical, she's crying.
The woman identified herself as Tanya Bogdanovich and explained that her lover Michael had been accidentally injured while the two were having sex by the side of the road.
They'd apparently driven out to the middle of nowhere to fulfill some kind of wild fantasy.
She said that they were into BDSM and that they liked knife play, and they'd gotten a little carried away, and he'd reached out for the knife and cut himself badly.
Tanya told the officers that she tried to take Michael to the hospital, but when they got back to their car, she discovered that she'd left the lights on.
She went to turn over the vehicle to try to go to get him help, and the vehicle was dead.
The officers radioed for an ambulance, and with no evidence of a crime taking place, they let Tanya and Michael leave without any charges.
The police are left with the impression that this is a consensual sexual act and that there's no kind of criminal activity.
But now, with 𝑲𝒊𝒍𝒆𝒓's savage body discovered 1 day later, and close to the exact same location, detectives couldn't help but wonder if the couple had been covering something up after all.
Yeah, his car with two people in it, one of them suffering some stab injuries and at least one knife in the vehicle, right around the same time frame as Ms. Paquette's disappearance. One would have to think there's highly likely a connection.
Investigators ran background checks on the two lovers, and while Michael's didn't turn up anything out of the ordinary, Tanya's revealed that she hadn't always been the upstanding nurse and mother she pretended to be. Apparently, before she went to nursing school or met Michael online, Tanya told several of her close friends that she'd been indulging her kinky sexual desires working as a prostitute. Though Tanya had never been arrested, her friends told police that Tanya had admitted she sold her body for money and to satisfy her own sexual addictions. Detectives, though, knew that simply because Tanya used to be a prostitute didn't mean she was a killer. Police still needed evidence, and a stroke of luck seemed to help them find a potentially crucial clue. Because Tanya and Michael had left the scene that evening in an ambulance, the car she'd been driving had been towed, and records indicated she still hadn't picked it up from the lot where it had been taken.
Police officers are sent to seize the vehicle so that the vehicle can't be moved or tampered with until they decide whether or not to seek a warrant.
No sooner had detectives identified Tanya's car than she and Michael suddenly showed up at the police station.
Tanya Bogdanovich and Michael McGregor showed up, wanting to pick up her car.
Police department staff informed Tanya and Michael that if they wanted her vehicle released, they would have to answer detectives' questions first. A requirement that obviously annoyed the couple, but both agreed to answer questions about Michael's accident.
Now, tell me, how is it that you and Michael get together? What are you up to? What's going on?
This is, it's so humiliating and embarrassing when you hear it out loud. So I'm holding the knife. He reaches out and grabs it. My instinct is like, pull back.
I just kind of like grabbed the blade and hooked both my hands and started bleeding like crazy.
Is it pretty bandaged up?
Yeah, I'm going in for surgery tomorrow in London because I gotta get tendon and nerve repair.
On both hands?
Yeah.
When police called the hospital, they confirmed their story. Michael was scheduled for surgery the next morning. So far, Tanya and Michael's account of their sexual misadventure held up. But that didn't mean police were going to let two suspects slip through their fingers.
The police don't, at that point, feel that they have probable grounds to arrest them, so they keep them under surveillance.
To get an outside account of the couple's last 48 hours, police contacted friends and family. To their surprise, they discovered Tanya had a serious live-in boyfriend. And when police spoke with him, it became clear he didn't know Tanya was seeing anyone else.
Her boyfriend clearly has no idea what's going on and that she's having this kinky relationship with Michael.
He said that as far as he knew, Tanya had spent New Year's Eve with her best friend, a young woman named Maggie Geller. When detectives paid her a visit, Maggie told them she knew about Michael and was used to helping Tanya hide the affair from her boyfriend.
I think they were expecting me to be just as abrasive or just as secretive as Tanya and Mike. I was very transparent with them, and I just sort of told them exactly what I knew about Tanya and what had gone on since June and what I knew about Mike.
Maggie confirmed that Tanya had been swept up in the kinky affair with Michael that summer. And she could tell that the lovers' sexual adventures were helping Tanya work through her traumatic past. But over the past month, Maggie said the lovers had taken their experimentation to more extreme and dangerous places.
There was a lot of harm being done to each other, to the point where it no longer was role play, it was scary.
From what Maggie told investigators, it sounded like Tanya and Michael's story about consensual knife play was plausible. There was only one problem. Maggie told them that when Tanya called her from the hospital the next morning, she'd given a very different account of the accident.
She was obviously distraught. She said that they had gone to a kink party, so a BDSM party, and it went in the wrong direction, that someone came after her and Mike went to grab a knife and he ended up having to go to London Hospital for nerve damage in his hand.
At the time, Maggie didn't know the story Tanya and Michael told police. But even then, Maggie could sense that her friend wasn't telling her everything.
I didn't really put two and two together at that point, but I sort of had that gut feeling that not everything that she said was true.
But Maggie also confessed that Tanya had a good reason to lie to her. Upset by the increasing danger of Tanya and Michael's sexual activities, Maggie had threatened to reveal the affair to Tanya's long-term boyfriend.
I had told her that as soon as someone gets hurt, then that would be my breaking point.
So was Tanya lying to Maggie to protect her happy home and continue the affair? Or was the deception part of a web of lies meant to cover up a brutal murder?
You're telling various people about the party, but then you're telling police a completely different story. We don't know what the truth is now, but we know that they're covering something.
Coming up, shocking new eyewitness testimony blows the case wide open.
He sees what he believes to be a white male get into the rear of that vehicle.
And investigators suddenly find themselves in a race against time.
She said, take care of my family, and I love you, and you're the last person that I'm gonna call. Tanya
Bogdanovich and Michael McGregor shared passion for extreme sex. Their carnal obsession created an irresistible bond, which only intensified as they pushed their desires to increasingly darker and more dangerous places.
You have the relationship progressing to the point where they are both actively engaging in sexual fantasies of knife play, of rape, and things of that nature.
But the investigation into the stabbing of local schoolteacher 𝑲𝒊𝒍𝒆𝒓 had revealed the extent of the couple's violent obsessions and put them at the center of the murder investigation. So far, though, detectives hadn't been able to find any physical evidence connecting the couple to the crime, so they'd been forced to let Tanya and Michael go. But a day after their initial interviews with the couple, investigators caught a new break. A local man called police after seeing Noelle's picture on the news and said he'd seen the schoolteacher on the night she disappeared. It had been the early hours of New Year's Day, not long after Noelle had left her boyfriend and friends behind at the party they'd been attending. According to the witness, Noelle had been walking along a dark street alone.
There was a gentleman that was working that overnight shift at a factory, and he had come outside to have a cigarette break, and he makes observations of a young blonde woman who's walking up the street.
The man said he'd watched Noelle walk a few blocks. Then, a white sedan suddenly turned onto the same street and slowly pulled alongside Noelle. From the man's vantage point, it looked like Noelle had stopped to talk to the driver. And after a few moments, Noelle had gotten into the car.
He had thought that maybe there was just a friend who was picking up a friend.
But what happened next struck him as very peculiar.
He sees the vehicle make another stop, and he sees what he believes to be a white male get into the rear of that vehicle.
The witness confirmed that the pickup happened around 2:45 a.m., just before Noelle disappeared. Detectives returned to the closed-circuit camera footage in the area in hopes of spotting the car. As luck would have it, they found a perfect still image of the same vehicle the witness had described.
The information allowed them to get cameras around that area that showed a white Grand Prix.
And it just so happened that the vehicle in the surveillance footage was the same model and had the same license plate as Tanya Bogdanovich's Grand Prix that had been impounded by police. To detectives, it was now certain that Tanya Bogdanovich and Michael McGregor were responsible for 𝑧𝒊𝒍𝒆𝒓's disappearance, and most likely her murder.
At that point, they felt they had reasonable probable grounds to make the arrest.
But investigators would have to move quickly. After speaking to the witness to Noelle's abduction, detectives received a phone call from Tanya's friend Maggie Geller, who told them that Tanya had just called her to let her know that the police were after her and Michael, and that they were ready to go on the run.
She told me they were trying to pin Noelle's death on her, and that she was gonna be leaving because it wasn't her that did it. And then she said to me, take care of my family, and I love you, and you're the last person that I'm gonna call.
But police knew that Tanya and Michael had to do one thing before they made good on their threat to flee the area. Michael's hand injury required surgery that was scheduled for that same morning. Detectives knew if they hurried, there was a good chance they could catch the couple before Michael was discharged and arrest them before they could disappear.
Michael was going to be kept for a while for observation, so they did have a chunk of time where they knew where they would be.
2 undercover police officers followed Tanya around as she waited for the operation to be finished. They even picked up her cigarette butts and immediately had her DNA.
Detectives patiently watched until Tanya received word that Michael was ready to be released, then followed her out to the parking lot as she retrieved her rental car.
They placed her under arrest for first-degree murder.
But when investigators went back inside the hospital to catch Michael coming out of surgery, they were in for a surprise. According to the front desk, Michael had already been checked out.
Nobody had thought to put an officer on him because he'd been in surgery. So he actually walked out the front door of the hospital and was picked up by his father.
It's not as if the place grabbed Tanya and then waited an hour. They went quite quickly to get him. They missed him by a matter of seconds. Now, at this point, he's left in a vehicle. He could be anywhere.
Investigators questioned Tanya to find out where Michael was going. But if she knew, she wasn't willing to say. That's when detectives caught an enormous break, when Tanya's cell phone suddenly started ringing.
It's Michael's father trying to find out where she went. That gives police Michael's location.
Tracking the call to a nearby hotel, investigators were finally able to take Michael into custody. When his father answered the door, he seemed stunned to learn that police were looking for his son. And he was much more horrified when he realized that Michael was being charged with first-degree murder.
As far as he knows, Michael is this mild-mannered college kid. He has no idea the things his son is into.
But what could have compelled Michael and Tanya to commit such a heinous and unspeakable crime to an innocent schoolteacher? Why had they targeted 𝑲𝒊𝒍𝒆𝒓, a young woman with whom they had no connection? And what exactly had they done to Noelle after they lured her into Tanya's car? When police pressed the couple for information, they each refused to speak. But a search of their phone and computer records soon helped provide investigators with some possible answers to these questions.
There's a whole collection of evidence that's there. All their electronic gadgets had all sorts of items of relevant interest to the police.
The police were able to get into Tanya's account where there was incredible stuff, you know, all in order. Was the dark corner that had the worst rape fantasies.
The lovers had cataloged the escalation of their darkest desires. From the rape fantasy of their first date to their fascination with more violent activities.
There was an extraordinary amount of evidence. There were videos and photographs of the couple doing horrific violence to each other.
A number of public posts from late November showed the couple had even tried to recruit other women to take part in rape role-play scenarios.
They reached a point where violating each other and hurting each other wasn't enough. They needed to bring a third party into their relationship.
The lovers had been unable to find a willing partner. But by that point, Tanya and Michael's obsession and desire to inflict pain on the other person had grown to the point where they refused to be denied. So they agreed their next step would be to kidnap and assault a non-consenting victim.
There was a series of text messages going back and forth that set out their plan for the rape, abduction, and murder of various possible victims.
On Michael's 19th birthday, Tanya had presented him with a digital photo frame loaded with pictures from the social media pages of local girls who the couple identified as potential targets.
They eventually settled on a female student at Michael's college.
In their messages, the lovers set a date for the big event, New Year's Eve. But when they went to abduct their victim, she was nowhere to be found. That called for a change of plans. And the couple decided to go hunting for a random victim. The victim the couple just happened to have driven past that evening was 𝑲𝒊𝒍𝒆𝒓. It had been cold that night, and Noelle, upset and alone after the fight with her boyfriend, gladly accepted the offer to drive her home from the woman she thought was a good Samaritan.
She was nothing more than a victim of circumstance. She really was a random person that they grabbed off the street.
Instead of a good Samaritan, 𝑲𝒊𝒍𝒆𝒓 had fallen victim to a pair of sadistic lovers. But would prosecutors finally learn what really happened to her that fateful night?
There was a lot of speculation on what exactly had happened, but nothing ever fully came out until the trial.
Coming up, terrifying details of the murder leave the jury in shock.
She'd been raped repeatedly.
But before their trial can conclude, Tanya and Michael make a shocking decision.
It was a sense of anger. It was a sense of defeat.
When 30-year-old Tanya Bogdanovich met 18-year-old Michael McGregor, she knew she'd finally found the man she could trust with her darkest desires. But the lovers' sadistic sex games had spiraled out of control, and now they were charged with the grisly slaying of local schoolteacher 𝑧𝒊𝒍𝒆𝒓. Armed with a search warrant, investigators collected samples of blood from Tanya's Grand Prix and sent them to a crime lab for testing. Some of the blood came back as a match for the victim, 𝑧𝒊𝒍𝒆𝒓.
They had the DNA. They were able to match that and that of the victims and put them in the same place at the same time. It was a strong case.
On the floor of the car, detectives also found the knife, which had traces of Noelle's blood on it, and the coroner's autopsy revealed even more horrifying details.
Most of her organs had been punctured. There was terrible damage around her throat, and she'd been raped repeatedly.
Combined with the couple's emails and text messages, prosecutors believe they could piece together the events leading up to 𝑧𝒊𝒍𝒆𝒓's brutal murder. After tricking Noelle into getting in Tanya's car, the couple had driven her to the woods, where Tanya held the knife to Noelle's throat while Michael raped her. Then, after Noelle had been sexually assaulted, the couple began to stab her over and over. In the midst of the frenzy, Michael cut his own hand, but that didn't stop the couple's bloodlust. According to Michael and Tanya's text after the murder, it had been the most erotic experience they'd ever had.
There was no defense after the viewing of these text messages. It's a very, very difficult case to defend.
This was premeditation. They had a desire, they made a plan, and they put that plan into action.
As their trial approached, the lovers seemed to realize how heavily the deck was stacked against them. Just weeks before they were to stand trial, Tanya and Michael surprised everyone by making an announcement.
It was finally disclosed to the general public that both Tanya and Michael had decided to plead to first-degree murder.
In statements issued through their attorneys, both Tanya and Michael claimed that their confessions hadn't been attempts to gain leniency, but instead expressions of responsibility and even regret for the crimes they committed.
She was genuinely remorseful for what she did and wanted to take responsibility.
It was Michael's decision that he didn't want to put his family and Noelle's family and the community through this excruciating process of, 5-month trial.
For most observers, the couple's expression of remorse was hard to believe, especially given the severity of Noelle's murder.
I knew that she was guilty. There's that part of you that hopes it's not. So when the guilty pleas came out, it was a sense of relief. It was a sense of anger. It was a sense of defeat.
It's terrifying to think that there are people